Hello world, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be creating an interaction with the tabs component from Webflow. Now this interaction features a sort of sliding image and some really cool hover interactions as well as a nice animation on the tab change. So let me just sort of walk you through the interaction and then we'll get to actually building it, okay? So, first up right here, we have, so these are our tabs, sort of our navigation, right? And you can see that as I hover on them, so if I hover on this one right here, you can see that a line pops up underneath, sort of like an underline. And the color of the active, or the one that I'm hovering on, sort of changes color to be this red to sort of signify that it's active, okay? Now to the right, we also have this image that is corresponding to the text on the screen, okay? So now if I click on our second one right here, you can see that the image sort of slides to reveal the next one. The text changes as well as the sort of underline. It moves to this next image because, this next tab link because that's the one that's active currently. Okay, so now I'll just flip through to this one again, and you can see that this second sort of interaction that's going on right now, this animation, is with this text. So if you observe the text, you can see that it comes up from beneath in a sort of really slight interaction, okay? We also have the images, of course, and then, like I said before, the hover and the sort of active state for these pieces of text. Okay, well, that's about it for the walkthrough. Let's just get right into building it. Okay, so in Webflow, I have a blank project, and the first thing that I'm going to do is change the background color of this body, okay? So I'm going to go down here, and I'll just change the color to, oh, I don't have a swatch for that. Let's just grab that hex code, and I'm going to paste it in. Okay, and it's going to be this sort of light, lightish gray, orangey color. Okay, this is our body. Now inside of here, the first thing that we're going to make actually is the wrapper. Now this is just going to be a normal div block, and I'm going to call this wrapper because it's going to contain our tabs element, and it's also going to contain the image. Now the images are sort of they're not a part of the tabs element themselves. They sort of exist as a different part. Hence, we need the wrapper to sort of make sure those are centered and sort of in the page where they need to be. Okay? So this wrapper is going to have a width of, let's say, 90%, maybe 85%. And it's just going to be set to flex, and we can align it to the top. And just make sure that we hit space between. Okay, so our two elements right here are spaced between, so there's space in between each other like this, and they're aligned to the top like this. You can see this tabs element sort of aligned to the top there. Okay, now let's go ahead and drag in the actual tabs component from Webflow. So I'm going to scroll down here, there we go, and make sure to place this inside of the wrapper. And let's center this wrapper, so let's grab the body element and let's make sure to set a sort of centering there. Okay, there we go. Now our tabs is just going to have a width of 50%, nothing special in that. Okay, and really the place where our styling really begins is with these tab links, okay? So I'm going to grab one that isn't the first one, so I'm going to grab maybe tab link 2, and I'll give it a class of tab link. And the first thing I'm going to do is just get rid of that background color, so maybe just make it that background color that we had previously, like that. And I'll apply the same class to this, I'll apply the same class to this one as well. Okay, so this one also says tab link. Now, if I apply the same class to our first one right here, you can see the background color, even though down here it says that the color is that swatch that we have picked out, it isn't actually changing, okay? And that's because this tab link has this sort of selector of current, okay? That's because it's the current tab, and there's some default styles that are sort of written on the current tab that you sort of need to change manually to make them work. So in the current tab, now if I just click on that same swatch one more time, you can see that it sort of reverts to what it was originally. Okay, now let's go ahead and begin styling this tab link. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure we get rid of all of the padding, okay? So I'm just going to make sure that there's no padding all around here. And instead I'm going to give it some margin. So I'm going to give it, let's say, 2 EM of margin on the left and on the right, and 0.8 EM of margin on the top, and the same applies for the bottom. Okay, now for our font, or for our text, right? I'm going to pick a font, and the font that I want isn't in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add fonts with the Google Font Library. So Webflow easily provides this for us. So I'm going to add, as you can see, I already have it here, but I'll delete it just to show you guys. This is going to be called IBM Plex Sans, okay? So I'm going to add that in, and I think I need regular, 500, 600, and 300, okay? Or maybe not even 600. I think this is good, okay? So now if I hit add font, and I close up this tab, and if I just reload, wait for this green marker tip here, and then now if I reload, it should show up, okay? So grab anything but the first tab link. So let's grab the second one, and I'll go through our fonts here, and there we go, IBM Plex Sans. Now this is going to be capitalized, as you can see, and as you can see here. And we're going to make sure that the color is set to black, and that the font size is 1.1 EM, okay? We're also going to make sure to set the height to be something else, let's say 1, and let me just type what we need to be typed in. So for example, first one is luxury apartments, the second one is, I believe, luxury duplexes, and the third one is luxury penthouse. Now we should probably add this to our tab panes as well. So if I grab any of these tab links and I go into our settings here, we can change the tab settings. So this one is, again, a luxury apartment, and then this one is luxury duplexes. I'll just copy and paste to make it quicker. And this last one is going to be luxury penthouse. Okay, done. Now, I think that's all we need. Let's just make this text a little bit bolder. So I think I'll just add, make sure not to select the current one, because then the styles will only apply to the current one. So I'll make it medium. And also just increase the letter spacing by a little bit. So maybe let's do 1.2 pixels. Okay, perfect. Now for the current, one thing that we do want to happen is for it to sort of have this red color when it's selected, right? So when this is the current tab, it has our red color. So let's go ahead and add that red coloring. I'm just going to grab the current one. So this one has a selector of current. And I'm going to make sure that the color is set to this red that we have here. Okay? Now, you can see that what we also have when it's current is this sort of underline sitting at the bottom, right? So let's go ahead and add that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a border at the bottom, so maybe 2 pixels of this. I think we might need to make it a little bit bigger. Let's make it 4 pixels. And to sort of give it some space, I'm going to go back to my tab link, the whole thing. And I'm just going to make sure that it has some padding. So let's say 0.4 EM of padding to sort of give it some space. Okay? Perfect. Now, before we move on to creating this sort of hover interaction, it's important to first get all the structure done. So I'm going to finish. Once this is done, we're going to go ahead and create the actual content. So that includes this paragraph and stuff like that. So all of them have different paragraphs. So let's go ahead and make that aspect of it. Okay, so in here we're going to have a really basic div. It's just going to be one div, and it's going to be called tab pane content. Okay? And this div is going to have a little bit of padding. So let's say maybe 2 EM of padding to the left and 0.5 EM of padding to the top. Then we're just going to go ahead and add a heading. This is going to be called tab pane title. And it's going to have that same font of IBM Plex Sans, but this time I'm just going to pick the normal font weight. And I'm also going to make sure that, this has to be placed inside the tab pane content. There we go. And make sure that the color is still black. And the size is going to be maybe 2.5 EM. That might be too little. Let's do 3 EM. And I'll make sure that the height is set to unitless and then 1. Okay? So this is going to say luxury apartment. And then we're going to grab our paragraph element. So this we can place right there, and I'm going to call this tab pane paragraph. Okay, this is going to have again that same font, and it can be normal. We can give it 1 em, maybe 1.1 em. Change that color. Make sure that the height is a little bit more. I think I might give it a height of 100, not 100, 1.5. Okay, that looks pretty good. Does that look about right? Yeah, okay, that looks good. Now we're just going to copy this tab pane content into the rest of our tab pane. So I'm going to paste this into the second one. Finally, paste this into the final one. So make sure that the final one again says penthouse, because this is accessing the one with penthouse. Then for the one with duplexes, so if I just grab this one is just gonna make sure it says duplexes. Okay, perfect. Now let's go ahead and create the image wrapper. So the content, the div that sort of holds this image, right? And like I said before, this is gonna sit outside of our tabs element, and actually it's going to be called a whole separate thing. So this is gonna be called tab pane image wrapper. Okay, now this is going to have a width of 45% and a height of 80 VH. Okay, now it's also going to have a max width. I think maybe 600 pixels should be good. And I'm also just going to make sure to set it to be flex and vertical. Can be aligned to the left. Oh no, flex and horizontal. And it can be aligned to the center but justified to the left. Okay, and that'll make more sense when I just drag the rest of our images in. Okay, now I'm not going to use the actual image. I'm actually just going to use the background image feature, so that our image is sort of always covering the div that we want it to cover. Okay, so this can be called tab pane image. It's just going to have a width of 100% and a height of the same. And in here we're going to place our first image. So I'm just going to grab the apartments, make sure it's set to cover, and then center it. Okay, now if I grab our second image and if I paste that in, okay, let's give it another combo class. So tab pane image 2. Now I'll grab the second one, the duplex, and finally I'll duplicate it one more time, and this one is going to be called 3. And just going to change it to penthouse. Okay, perfect. Now, the thing that's happening is that because our tab pane image wrapper is set to flex, it's sort of taking all of our images and shrinking them down to fit inside of here. But we don't want that to happen, so I'm going to grab any tab pane image, and on the flex child settings at the top right here, I'm going to make sure to hit don't shrink or grow. Okay, so now you can see some things, right? So one of those things is that you can see our second image sort of sticking out to the edge right here. Okay, and we don't want to see that. We only want to see our second image when we click on the second tab, right? Actually, just gonna make sure I'm selecting the first tab by default. Okay, there we go. But right, we don't want to see the second tab, tab pane image until we click on the second tab pane, right? So for that, we're gonna grab our first tab pane image wrapper, and I'm just gonna make sure it's set to overflow hidden. Okay, then I'm gonna give it a border radius. Let's give maybe 2 em or 1 em of border radius, like that, and that's good. Okay, now this image is set to the left of here, and this image is set to the left of that. Okay, now just to be sure that these images are where we need them to be, I'm going to grab the first image, give it a combo class, and I'm going to call this, make sure the position is set to absolute, and it's going to take up the whole thing. Now right now it's relative, you can see from Webflow's sort of thing right here, it's relative to the body, but we want it to be relative to the tab pane image wrapper. So how do we do that? We just have to set the tab pane image wrapper to be relative. Okay, there we go. So that one is set to full, but we don't want this to happen to the rest of our tab pane images. Okay, we want the second one to be set to position absolute again. We want it to have 100% of space to the left. Okay, that's basically saying that we want the 100% of this width, so that means like 45% width and 80 VH height, and we want it to be moved that amount of space to the right. Okay, now for our third one, it's a similar idea, but instead of 100%, we're going to hit 200%. Okay, perfect. Now we have the structure of our website done. Let's go ahead and build the interactions. the first thing we're going to start by building is this sort of hover interaction that you see going on right here. Okay, so for that, we cannot animate the border right here. The border, animating the border is a little bit difficult. So right now for our tab link, to specify that it's the current, we have a border, right? Well, we can't animate that. So instead what we have to do is drag in a separate block, and this we can call tab link underline. And we have to drag this block in. We're going to give it the exact same dimensions as the border. So width of 100% and 4 pixels of border. Okay? Now we just have to give it that same background color, and now it looks exactly like that border. Okay? Let's just add this into all of our sort of tab links right here. And okay. Now, let's go ahead and animate this. I know there's 2 borders right now, but let's just go ahead and animate this for now, okay? So I'm gonna grab this and I'm gonna say that on mouse hover, what we want to happen is we want, so tab link hover in is what I'm gonna call this. We want the tab link underline, the initial state of it, so when the page first loads, we want the width of that to be 0%, right? So we're gonna make sure that it's set to set as initial state, okay? But now, after we hover in, we want the width to become 100% again, okay? So let's just save that. Now, what do we want to happen when we hover out? We want it to go back to its original state, which was, of course, in a width of 0%, right? So let's add that in just to sort of complete this animation, okay? So size, and we'll set it back to 0%, okay? Now, if I just go ahead and add this to all of our things right here, so on, hover, hover in, hover out, and then finally for this one, click through and hover in and then hover out. Okay, so now if I look through here, okay, there we go. It works. Works in here as well. Looks a little bit weird, but we can fix that. So let's fix the animation settings for a second. Make sure it's set to, let's say, ease, and it only happens in 0.3 seconds. Okay, that looks way better. Now for this last one, let's make sure this is set to ease out maybe, and again, 0.3 seconds. Okay, that's good. But the problem that we're facing right now is that on our current tab, we can still see that hover interaction. And we don't want to see that hover interaction on our current tab, right? We only want it to be, we only want that interaction to be happening when it's not our current tab, right? So to do that, what we have to do is we have to fix a few things, okay? So let's go ahead and grab our tab link underline, okay? Now, what we're gonna do with this tab link underline is that we're gonna set it to position absolute, and our tab link is already set to position relative, so we're good on that end. We're gonna set it to position absolute and make sure that we hit the bottom option, okay? So now it's set directly at the bottom of our tab link, okay? But the problem occurs with our current tab. They're sort of sitting like on top of each other and doesn't look very good, okay? So what we have to do is we have to move it down. So we have to grab our tab link underline and we just have to move it down -4 pixels, okay? Now, once we're done doing that, we just need to give it a little bit of margin to the top, maybe 0.3 em, and for some reason that's not working. Oh, it should be -4 pixels, not -4%. And the reason that it works with -4 pixels is because the height of our tab link underline as well as the height of the border is 4 pixels. Okay, done. Forgetting something? Am I forgetting something? Oh, we didn't change the color on the, okay. So when we hover on any of these tab links, we want the color to change and become, what do you call it? We want it to become a, not move, we want it to become the red color, okay? So let's go ahead and add that in. Okay, and then when we hover out, we want to grab that same tab link and make sure that the text color is switching back to black. Save. Oh, and always make sure that in here as well, the width is set to 0% on these link underlines. Okay, so let's hover, it's working, and the color is still not showing up. Gee, I wonder why. Oh, not the tab link underline. This should be happening to the tab link, not the tab link underline. Uh-oh, okay. Let's grab the tab link once more And let's make sure that the text color on the tab link is set to red. Okay, there we go. And then when we hover out, we want the text color to be set to black. Okay. Uh-oh, why can I not just do that? Grab the tab link. Let me try this one more time. Grab the tab link and change the text. Uh-oh. Grab the tab link and change the text color to, okay, it's not even allowing me. It's okay. Let's just hit red and now it should work. Okay? Okay, so it's working. That's working. Something weird is happening here. They're changing for different ones. Why is that happening? Just affect the class. Only. What happened here? Okay, so this one right here says only siblings with the class, and we don't want that to happen because it's affecting every other one except for itself, and we don't want that to happen. So I think only children with class should work, okay? Okay, there we go, finally. And it's working a little bit weird. Oh my god, I didn't think I have to spend so much time on this one, but I guess we do. So 0.3 seconds and make sure it's ease, okay? And then finally that applies to this one as well, so 0.3 seconds and then ease out. Okay, I think we're done, finally, okay. Okay, let's try that one more time. So hover in, hover out, hover in, hover out, hover in, hover out. Let's try this one. Okay, so we're facing a little bit of a problem there. So when we hover on this current one, when we hover out, although we don't see the link underlined, we are seeing the text color go back to black, and we don't want that to happen, right? So, and the reason that's happening is because Webflow, it's taking the whatever I'm changing in the interactions, and it's overriding what I'm doing in the style panel. So in the style panel, I've set current to have that color of red, right? But what's happening is that in the interactions panel, that sort of the color set to black is sort of overriding that. So to fix that, we're going to grab our one HTML embed, or actually, we're going to go to our page settings in here. And in the custom code, you can see that I already have it sort of written here. If I hit save, I have this custom code written for you guys already, but I can sort of post it in the description box below for anyone that wants to copy it. But essentially what we're doing is we have the tab link where we're setting the current, so the tab link with the current state set to that color of red, but we're also using this important class called important, okay? Now what this is doing is it's saying that this color of this red is going to precede like everything else, okay? So this color of red is going to be above everything else, and it will always be there. So it's going to be important. And even though we're setting the color to be black in that interactions panel, this will take precedence. So this will be higher up, and essentially this color will get applied. Now we can't see it on our preview page right now, but if I publish this website, and if I go and view it, okay, now if I hover, and these ones it works, but if I hover on our actual luxury apartments or our current tab, so if I hover on this current tab, you can see that it doesn't change. Okay, perfect. So that part is working. Got it? The next part of our website is to create the interaction that appears with this sort of text. Okay, so when I click on this one, you can see that the text sort of changes like that. Okay? So the next thing that we're going to create is actually the image moving transition that you see right here. Okay, so when you click on any of these, you can see that the image starts to move. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm going to grab the first tab link, and I'm going to set up a tab change interaction, not mouse click, but tab change. Okay, this I'm going to call tab change, and this is called the apartments, right? So this is the apartments tab. I'm going to make a specific one for that. So this is going to be called the apartments. Now, what we're doing is that no matter whenever you click on this apartments tab, we want this tab pane image, right? So we want it to move and make sure that we're selecting all of them. So right now, that was selecting just the one with the combo class of tab pane image 1, right? So it had the combo class of 1. But we want to select all of them. So all the tab pane images, right? We want them to move back to their original position of 0%, okay? So that means that it's what they look like right now, okay? And you can see that if I move them like this, if I move it maybe at negative 100%, we see the second image. And if I move it negative 200%, we see the third image. But when we click on our first tab right here, we only want it to be the original position, which is 0%. Okay, that's great. Okay, now let's make one for the second tab link. I'm going to call this tab. Actually, even before we do that, I'm sorry to keep messing up so much, but even before we do that, let's go ahead and add our luxury apartments, so our text to that same interaction, to sort of minimize the having to duplicate too many of them. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to tab change apartments, and I'm gonna start to define what happens whenever I click on this particular tab, what I want this sort of text to do. Okay. So the first thing is, to make it easier for us when we're grabbing elements in the interactions panels, we're going to go back to our tab pane contents, and I'm going to give each of them a different combo class. So I'm going to give the first one a combo class of 1, and the second one a combo class of 2, and the third one a combo class of 3. Okay, now if we go back, it should be infinitely easier to figure out which one is which when we start to make our complex animations. Okay, so first thing, we're going to grab our tab pane content, the first one. Okay, make sure you grab the first one because this is again for the first tab, right? And we're going to set an initial state for it. So when we first start out, you can see that when I click on, for example, this one, it starts out lower and the opacity is 0, and then it comes up and the opacity turns to 100. Okay, so we're going to move it down to REM, and then we're going to lower the opacity down to 0%. Okay, and then when we sort of get to the actual part of the animation, we're going to move it back up to 0 rem. And then we're also going to make sure that the opacity is set all the way back to 100. Okay, then I'm going to grab all of these and make sure that the duration is again set to 0.3 and it's set to ease. So now if we look at it, there we go. Okay, perfect. So that's our tab change apartments. Let's go ahead and create these same interactions for all of our different tabs, okay? So again, tab change, I'm just gonna duplicate, I'll get rid of this, and I'll duplicate the tab change apartments, and I'll call this one tab change duplexes. And all I really have to do here is grab any of these tab pane contents and replace it with the tab pane contents 2, right? Because this is the second tab, got it? And for our image, this is fine, we can just do this. And all we have to do is just change up our image to move negative 100% to reveal the second image because this is the second tab, okay? Finally, we just have to duplicate it one more time. So tab change, duplicate, and I'm gonna call this one tab change penthouse. And again, we're gonna change the tab pane content to be the third one this time, and also the image to move negative 200%. Okay, perfect. Now let's just go ahead and click through all of our things right here. So you see that when I first apply, this sort of image comes up. We click the second one. We have our same sort of interaction. No, we don't. Why don't we have our same interaction? Okay. Okay, we're not having our same interaction. Let me go back and sort of check as to why we're not having the same interaction. Okay, so it is working in here. Let's go check this out. Okay. So we're having a bit of a problem with that, but don't worry, we'll fix it. And but our images are working smoothly, right? So that's working well. Perfect. Okay. So what we want to happen to sort of fix that problem is that when our tab is out of view, right? So we want to start an animation then as well. And we're going to call this tab change out of view. Now what this is doing is that whenever we switch to our next tab, it's sort of resetting the values that we had from before to get this tab interaction to work again, okay? Because remember, we're setting that initial state, but the initial state only works when the page first loads, right? But we need to have something whenever we switch between tabs, right? So for that, I'm gonna grab any of the tab pane contents. It actually doesn't matter for this one. And we're just gonna move it and make sure that it's like selecting tab pane content, the one without any, without a combo class that I don't know if I can even select in here because it's not even allowing me to. Okay, tab pane content. Okay, I'm gonna have to grab this, I guess. There we go, finally. Okay, and we're gonna move it back 0 pixels. 0 pixels, or sorry, what is it again? What did I pick? I picked 0 rem, so 0 rem on the y-axis, and then we're also gonna make sure that the opacity is again back to 0, and then the duration for both of these is gonna be 0 seconds. It's gonna be an instant change, okay? Now let's go and look at it, and it's still really not working, and I don't know why. It's moving a little bit to the left. I don't know why that's happening. Let's check it out. Oh, we have to add that same out of view interaction to all of our other tab changes as well. So let's go ahead and add that in. Hopefully it works better now, and it's still not working, and I really let's inspect and use our Chrome Inspector panel to try to figure out what's going on. Okay, so the opacity is working. Let's go ahead and go to our tab settings and make sure that there's none of this fade in, fade out default interactions that Webflow gives us. Okay, nope, still not working. Wowee. Okay, so it's working for this one, and not this one, and not this one. Okay. Okay, let's check out this one. So it works for the first two, but it doesn't work after that. Weird. Weird, weird, weird. They both have tab change. Tab change. Let's make sure the tab change is selecting all. It is. Okay, let's go and look through this again. Let's use our, sorry, not there. No inspect panel needed here. This is the layout that actually works, okay? So let's go ahead and let's just inspect this and we'll figure out what's going on. Okay, so I'm gonna select the tab pane content and do a little bit of debugging here. Oh, that was my fault. Okay, we figured out the problem. Everything is working, but we need to make sure that to set in our tab change out of view that it goes back down to 2 rem, not 0 rem. Okay, now it should actually fully be working. Okay, there we go, finally. Okay, let's hit publish so that we can see our hover thing work without having to, there we go. And now, okay, as we click through, you can see that our color stays on our current tab, regardless of how many times we hover in on it. Perfect, perfect. Okay, well that's it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. Leave a like, comment down below, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!